All right, go for it.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. It's V the Guerrilla Economist coming to you live with our main friend, the one and only Harley Schlanger. He is a man that needs no introduction whatsoever. He is a voice of reason, and especially in these troubled times, he helps us to keep the eyes on the prize. You can find him on LaRouchePack.com, as well as the SchillerInstitute.org, the SchillerInstitute.org. Harley, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, V. How are you doing?
Harley, my head is spinning. There's so many things happened, especially in the last 72 hours or so. Michael Flynn just pleaded guilty to this whole Russian collusion melodrama kabuki theater here. Where do you want to begin? This is a ball of yarn we got to get through. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I'll say something quickly on the Flynn thing and then get to the higher concern here. I mean, the indictment and the guilty Flynn is a real joke. I mean, he's guilty of lying to the FBI because he didn't tell them the actual discussion he had with the Russian ambassador. Now, why is it a criminal act for an incoming administration to talk to an ambassador from another nation to explain, once we get in, we're not going to be coming after you the way Obama did? Flynn, instead of lying, should have just said to the FBI, you guys are a bunch of jerk-offs. I'm not going to go along with your jihad against the incoming administration. Of course, I talked to Kislyak because we don't want to go to Russia, which is where Obama was pushing us. So again, this is a typical prosecutorial fraud where you're trying to build a case on a piece here, a piece there, and then getting people to reach plea bargains where they lie. And you know, the real reason behind this, as you and I have discussed all along, is that the people behind the Mueller and the whole Russiagate are trying to prevent a break away from the Bush-Obama paradigm of confrontation with Russia and China, endless war policy, and endless bailout policy. And instead of penalizing Trump for that, he should be praised for it. This is what he was elected to do. So I think people shouldn't get too worked up about the Flynn case. I mean, Flynn did some things on his own that one could look back and say he shouldn't have done them, like lie to the FBI. But the question is, why was the FBI coming after him in the first place?
And that is a very clear point. Exactly, why was the FBI coming after him in the first place? And then what's the heinous crime about an incoming administration again speaking to foreign dignitaries? It is a normal course of diplomacy here. This whole Russian collusion thing is a made up nothing burger. It's been said over and over and over again. The sycophant media is frothing at the mouth with this whole entire Flynn confession. Harley, it's ridiculous.
Well, and the reason they're doing it is they're trying to ignore the bigger picture. Going back to when Trump was in China, and then Trump's phone call shortly after he came back with Putin, these were actually crucial developments for the future of every single person who lives in the United States. Because what Trump worked out with Xi was a collaboration, and it's not just on North Korea, it's a collaboration on a strategic perspective of the free trade deals that were being made by previous administration and replacing them with win-win deals that will benefit the American people. And V, I find it quite ironic that the media keeps saying Trump hasn't accomplished anything. He just got a $70 billion plus deal for the state of West Virginia. Now, anyone who knows West Virginia knows that 70 billion, even if it's over 10 years, is a huge deal. It means jobs, it means future industry coming into the state. And the governor of West Virginia had a press conference where he said, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to our state. And yet you barely find mention of it in the media, which tries to say Trump got nothing from his trip to China. Since then, we've seen a whole series of events. There was a group, the Eastern and Central European Economic Community,
Yeah.
the so-called 16+1, had a conference where they announced the beginning of the Belgrade to Budapest Railroad, funded and built by the Chinese, as a front end of a whole number of deals.
Yeah, and they have the nerve to say that he's done nothing. He's done more in less than a year in office than Obama has done in 8 years of screwing everything up. He's inherited a mess. Is he perfect? No. Does he make the right decisions in choosing people? No. But is he a lot better off than what we would have gotten with Hillary Clinton? I mean, if Hillary Clinton got elected, Harley, I would be interviewing you as a pile of radioactive ash. Me and CJ would be radioactive, mutagenic ash, and you'd be somewhere in Germany, staving off some sort of a Russian invasion over there or something.
Well, I mean, Hillary hasn't stopped. She's still attacking Russia.
I love it.
That anything that Trump does with Putin is a disgrace. Clapper came out again and said that it's treason what Trump is doing with Putin. If he were to go further with this, it would be a threat to the national security of the United States. It's complete nonsense. The idea that Putin is either a new Russian czar or a new Joseph Stalin preparing to overrun Europe is such nonsense. Even the people in Germany who repeat that privately say they know Putin has no intention of moving into Western Europe because it's in his interest. Now, then you get this line in Europe that the reason the Chinese are making deals in Eastern Europe is to break apart Europe. Now, the Chinese are also trying to make deals in Western Europe, but the European Union won't let them. So we've got a divided world, and I think what Viktor Orban, president of Hungary, said at this meeting that took place in Budapest is really interesting. He said the balance of power is shifting from west to the east. And he said, I don't mean military power, I mean economic power. And
right.
This is really the case. And if we in the West don't wake up and stop this nonsense and get on board with the reconstruction of the Middle East, with the projects for development in Africa and Central and South America, States, what's interesting is they say Trump is isolating the United States. In reality, Trump's moves toward China will prevent us from being isolated. If we were to go with the Obama, Clinton, Bush policy, the United States would be a collapsed country left behind by the rest of the world.
Absolutely right. And that's something that these morons don't seem to understand, is that he is integrating us to the most vibrant economic union on planet Earth, a vibrant economic union that will create trillions of dollars in wealth, will lift up billions upon billions of people out of poverty. And these idiots, these globalists, don't want that to happen because they want, they're all stuck on their neo-feudalistic fiefdoms, man. That's what they want. It's unbelievable.
Well, that is what they want, and they're going to get it because anyone who survives a nuclear war will live in worse than feudal times. But, I find it somewhat sad that many people who correctly identify the Federal Reserve policy and the ECB policy, the Bank of England policy of funny money, of fiat money, of fake money, who understand that, don't understand that the Chinese are not doing that. The Chinese are creating credit against real assets, namely dollars and US Treasury notes, that to create credit to build things. Now, why is that a debt bubble? A debt bubble is when you go into debt to pay off debt, or you go into debt, risky investments that are going to collapse. So we have too many Americans who consider themselves conservatives who are skeptical of the Belt and Road Initiative. Either they just don't like the Chinese, or they don't understand the difference between productive credit and a fiat money system.
Exactly correct. I mean, we mistakenly ascribe to China to have the same type of modalities, the same types of outlook on life, the same type of motivations as if we do. Okay, just like us, we think that what they're doing in terms of issuance of credit is similar to the paper Ponzi Wall Street scams that are happening here. They don't see, the Western population doesn't seem to understand that. And that's a problem because it shows how disconnected we are from reality of what their situation is, number one. And number two, it prevents us from learning what actually works versus something that doesn't work at all, that we repeatedly do over and over again, simply because, well, that's just the way we do it.
Well, and the other side of it is it ignores the reality of what we face in the West. I'm working on an article about a whole series of warnings that have come out. Now, I'll just give you a few.
I think you cut out on us, Harley.
Eurozone areas.
Harley, you cut out on us for about 10 seconds.
Okay. Just to give you a few headlines on the real situation with the economy in the West. The Wall Street Journal reported that 10% of the companies in the 6 strongest Eurozone countries cannot pay interest on their debts. In other words, they're headed into bankruptcy. The Bundesbank, which is usually a lying central bank of Germany, report, they said that there's an underestimation of risks, that risks have built up because of a long period of low interest rates that could threaten a new financial crisis. Now, that's something that we've known a long time, but now you have the Bundesbank saying it. They're also saying residential property prices in Germany are 15 to 30% overvalued. The OECD, which is another economic think tank, said that household and corporate debt in many advanced and emerging market economies is too high. There's been a substantial decrease in credit quality in credit markets, and they're saying this is going to come home in the next year. New reports out that show that almost 50% of American households could not come up with $400 to cover an emergency expense without borrowing, namely on credit cards. I mean, the idea that we're in a robust economy is absurd. And the idea that somehow we're threatened by countries that are investing intelligently also shows, as you were just saying, how little most Americans know about how it really works.
Yeah, and on top of that, we have the military-industrial complex that fills us with such propaganda, thinking that we could do what we want to do when we want to do it, and nobody could stop us. Nobody could have any saying against us. There's no recourse whatsoever. And it's a dangerous combination, Harley. It's a dangerous combination. I've never seen. I don't even think Rome had the type of hubris that we have.
Well, Rome is a good example. We have military forces all over the world, and virtually everywhere they're going, they're propping up regimes that are bad regimes, or they're toppling regimes that are competent regimes. And as in the case of Iraq, we were there for 14 years, and it actually was because of the Iranian intervention that the terrorists in Iraq were defeated. In Syria, supported the extremists. And
Harley,
Russia,
could you repeat that? I think you cut out again for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I was saying in Syria, the United States under Obama supported the terrorists. The Russians came in and helped the Syrians crush the terrorists. So when you talk about the illusion of U.S. military force, there are limits to what pure military force can do. The political policy. So I think the lesson is that if we begin to look at where the world's going to be in 20, 30, 40 years, we'll see that for the United States to maintain itself as a vibrant economic force on the planet, we're going to have to change our thinking about economics with the rest of the world. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing because otherwise we think like an empire, and all empires eventually collapse.
Absolutely correct. And they get to a level of hubris and stupidity like we do. And unless we, the people, rise up and put an end to this, these guys are on the run. These cabal individuals, these globalists are on the run. And they are desperate. So they're a very, very dangerous animal because they are a cornered animal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also you see the hypocrisy. Janet Yellen, who, remember, about 4 months ago said she sees no possibility for a new financial crisis in our lifetime. Well, now that she's no longer Federal Reserve Chairman, or she's on her way out, she said, quote, "I am very worried about the sustainability of the U.S. debt trajectory." That's like Schäuble, the German finance minister who imposed the bailout austerity regime on Greece, is now saying that these bailouts didn't work or were the wrong policy. So, at least some of these people are learning a lesson. But unfortunately, the Bush crowd in the Republican Party, the Clinton-Obama crowd, the deep state apparatus around the likes of Brennan and Clapper and others, they represent, it's not that they're wrong in their forecasting, it's that they represent a wrong policy. And I will say this, you've seen all the speculation about Tillerson on his way. Putting someone like Pompeo as Secretary of State would be a catastrophe. Pompeo comes from the Bush networks. I don't care if he was known as a hardline deficit hawk. He's been taken over completely by the Brennan crowd in the CIA. Talking about Tom Cotton from Arkansas as his replacement at CIA would be a disaster. Cotton is still raving about the Russians. So I think we're seeing the Bush counteroffensive against Trump and the Republican Party, the neocons, on the ascendance. And that's because Trump has been severely weakened by this alliance between the Bush crowd and the Clinton-Obama crowd.
And it doesn't help. You have a snake in the grass who's whether he knows what he's doing it on purpose or he's not. The one and only idiot Kushner, who basically magnetizes these neocons, these neo-libs, and these globalists directly to him. Harley, it doesn't help the situation whatsoever.
Well, I like Trump's proposal that Kushner go back to New York City and become a real estate mogul again. At least he'll hurt fewer people if he does that. But the other snakes in the grass, people like McConnell and Paul Ryan, who have done nothing to help and put through what Trump said he was campaigning for. In fact, they've done everything they can to sabotage it. Now, one other thing that I just wanted to bring into the discussion here is what is going on in Syria, because you had a very important meeting between Putin and Assad. And after that, it was followed up by having Erdogan and Rouhani from Iran meeting with Putin and Assad to discuss reconstruction, finishing off the terrorists.
Right.
And then brought into that was a fairly high-level group of people from the Trump administration who were, by being there, supporting this effort. Now, this is the way out of a crisis that began when idiot Bush Jr. decided to launch the war against Iran. So the way out of this whole war on terror, police state operation is on the horizon. And the key to it is not the Americans, but President Putin. And Trump recognizes that, and that's why he's talking to Putin and continuing to push this idea of collaboration, especially on counterterrorism.
Exactly correct. I mean, something has to be done. I mean, again, Harley, there's right now the count is 4,200 sealed indictments in the federal courts right now. I don't even know what that means. I hope that's a good thing. I've never seen numbers like that before. But domestically, it's a fight.
I don't know about the sealed indictments, but I do that the Mueller investigation is being run by the enemy. And those people who have an illusion, and I've seen it all over the internet, that Trump and Mueller are pulling a sting operation against the deep state. Forget it. Mueller has always been an operative of the deep state. And the people who are backing him, the crew that he pulled in as his deputy prosecutors, many of them come from the Obama crowd, the Clinton and Obama crowd. They have to be beaten. And the way to beat them is to identify the fraud underlying their whole investigation. which is that the American people were either manipulated or duped by Russian ads on Facebook and a Russian hacking of the DNC, which never happened. The whole narrative is false, and that's why you see Mueller instead going for indictments of Flynn on lying to the FBI. Papadopoulos, I mean, what was his indictment? Lying to the FBI. Manafort is accused of laundering money when he took his salary from Ukraine and put it in U.S. banks. So they have on the whole purpose of the investigation. And I think people should realize that's because the purpose was never to prove Russian meddling, because it didn't happen. It was to keep the U.S. on a course, a British Wall Street directed course of undercutting and undermining at every step the moves toward a new financial system, which is a break with the private banks that.
Harley, you cut out. Harley, could you hear me? You cut out.
Yeah. How far back?
5 seconds.
Okay. Well, I think I ended. I just said that this was the intention from the beginning was to make sure that Trump did not break with the Bush, Obama, Clinton policy. Trump has done that. I mean, ironically, the people who are screaming the loudest are screaming precisely because they know that the break has already occurred. He's already changed the direction of U.S. policy. We're over that. We've already gone beyond that. The question is, can they turn it back by bringing him down with a continued series of phony indictments?
No, exactly. The fact that he was taken by President Xi Jinping and they had dinner at the Forbidden City is volumes. That speaks volumes to me.
Yeah, people just don't understand because we're a prisoner of a media which is run by the enemy. They don't understand that there's been a fundamental change in China. We just had the official from China, the Academy of Sciences in China, in charge of Africa policy, speak at our conference outside of Frankfurt last weekend. And she just said, look, we're not in Africa to challenge the West or to steal resources or to grab lands. We actually believe that we've made a lot of money for the Chinese people through certain economic policies that we wish to extend to the rest of the world. And it was a beautiful speech. If people want to see what we discussed at our conference, it should be up on the Schiller Institute site within a couple of days. We had people from 30 nations speaking, people from Ukraine, from Italy. Your friend Marco Zanni gave a really beautiful speech about why the EU is headed into a collapse.
Yeah.
So people can go to the Schiller Institute site and see these videos.
Absolutely. And it's important that people, that we continue this mass effort to really resist the deep state, the globalists, the enemies of humanity, and continue to do our hard work. Harley, how can people follow you? And we're at the end of the show, but how can people, follow you, reach out to you, email, anything like that? Go ahead. Well,
I have a new blog page on the LaRouche
awesome.
PAC website, which is lpac.co/Harley. So you have to write that down so you can remember it, but it's lpac.co/Harley. And you can go there. My articles are being posted there, and hopefully I'll be able to set it up as a much more interactive site. So subscribers and to Rogue Money and people who listen to your program, if they want to, can be in touch with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Harley, for joining us, and thank you all for listening in. This is, again, Via the Guerrilla Economist with Harley Schlanger. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you are alerted to the next time that Harley is joining us again. With that being said, we are over and out. Take it away, CJ.